You know, as I've mentioned to you before, and Newfangled has been a big fan of the Four Kitchens brand for a long time. And it was really a great honor when you and the team decided to, partner. And, like we do with all of our clients, we take it very seriously. It's a big investment of time and money and energy. And there's always a pretty significant, the word that's coming to mind is burden there. It's just a heavy responsibility, right?
Sure.
We've got a lot of responsibility to our clients, and so, and the thing about our situation that's interesting is that you never really know. You never really know how the client's going to operate, how deep their expertise actually is, how that is going to resonate with their market. You just don't know. And so much of what we do is discovery and experimentation and tweaking and refining just to get to, okay, this is what's working. And so today I'd like to talk about the Four Kitchens marketing journey, really. You can go as far back in history as you'd like to talk about
Sure.
what it was like. And I just invite you to be completely candid about any apprehension you had about confusion or points of concern, anything at all. Like, let's just have an honest conversation about what the journey's been like, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in my second year here at Four Kitchens, so my history does not go back too terribly far. We're almost 15 years old as an agency, but what I will say about our marketing journey up to the point where we started working with Newfangled was it was very much within our own bubble. Yes, it's always been somewhat content driven, but very tactical, technical, developer written content for the most part. And most of our marketing dollars, marketing efforts, our marketing calendar was all based around physical events, which
Right.
For whatever reason, we started working with you guys during the pandemic year. Obviously, we didn't know that at the time, at the end of 2019, but
Right.
we were forced to make a massive pivot away from that, just as everybody has this year. And I think it's been sort of a happenstance moment where we kick off with you guys. The pandemic starts to take over the whole world at the beginning of this year, and we really took a step back and went, wow, we need to focus on content marketing more. We have a lot of great thought leadership content to put out on the technical side. Suddenly we were looked at as a company that does the dispersed workplace extremely well. We've been fully remote for 6 years after having deep roots in Austin, Texas for a long time. And this whole year really hasn't been much of a workflow pivot for us. It's just been business as usual. But from a marketing perspective, now everybody is visiting your site. They're not seeing you on the ground at events. And that's been a big shift for us. And, I don't know that we would have had the success that we've experienced the second half of this year, a real true financial bounce back in the latter half of 2020, had we not really established a very strong and very purposeful content marketing practice with you guys in the first half of the year. We got really lucky that our site really when it did, honestly. If we had started the site building process later in the year, or the engagement began at a different time, we probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation right now, honestly. But we've been able to, over the last 6 months or so, 6-8 months since the site relaunched, we've been able to really see how fruitful the content marketing practice has become and how natural it has been to grow and expand with your team. What I'll say about the second part of your question in terms of how we came to work with Newfangled, I think there was really one simple criteria. We wanted to find somebody within the bureau, a like-minded business, a similar size business that potentially experiences the same pain points that we do as a small business. And I think, your reputation in the marketplace and across the bureau was extremely helpful. There wasn't there wasn't any long list. We didn't spend a long time sifting through candidates or interviewing shops. I think you guys really blew us away when we just had an introductory conversation prior to kicking off and making a decision. We knew that we wanted to go into this model of spending more on content marketing, making our website into something that is fully representative of us as a company and us as a brand in the marketplace. And you guys just nailed all of that from the first conversation that we had. We felt incredibly confident as a team that it was going to be a great fit. And there was no apprehension across the board. I think we brought in, I don't know, that first conversation, 5 or 6 of us. And afterward we debriefed and we were like, this is it. There's not really much of a reason to look around any further. We all gave the thumbs up and wanted to work with you guys. And I think we followed up the next day and we were like, Mark, get us on the calendar. And, even as we kicked off the engagement, I mean, we all met in Denver and had a one-day workshop and just felt extremely confident coming out of that session where we really dove into what we're experiencing as a business going into 2020, who our audience is, who our core personas should be, what our areas of focus from a content perspective should be. We all just 100% agreed that this is the right direction to go in. And it's just continued over the course of, the last 12 months working with each other.
You've been incredibly disciplined and focused as an organization. The 2 things I always say are the table stakes for working with us, in order to get any value from working with us. One is drive, hunger, like a real desire for this to work. As you now know, as well as anybody could know, it's a lot of work on the client side. It takes a lot, and it's not easy. And if you don't really want it, you're not going to do the work. You're just not. And so that's one thing I always try to check is like, okay, dude, is this a nice to have or is it a must have? Not that the client's desperate. That's not a requirement. Just desire. Desire and desperation are very different things. Just desire. And you had that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say too, the company culture here has always been very pro content, but it's been within our little bubble, and we really needed you guys to come in and burst that bubble a little bit. There were no guardrails around creating content here before you guys were around. There was always somebody raising their hand saying, I've got an idea for a blog. I'll work up an outline. Let's get it onto the site. We've been honestly pretty prolific in our past in creating a lot of content. It may not be the right targeted content for the audience that we want to pursue from a lead gen perspective, but the desire to create has always been there, really across all of our teams within the company. And that, I think, a testament to you guys instilling process into our workflow this year. That has not changed. That perception, that feeling across the team, even with the engineers, that has not changed at all. And I mean, that's probably the biggest pat on the back I can give Newfangled as a collective team, is you guys have come in and changed our workflow for the better, and nobody has put up a stink about it.
Right, not even the engineers.
Yeah, exactly. They're rooted in their way, and they like to do things a certain way, and that's usually the group that will raise their hand and say, I didn't enjoy this particular experience. Please right. For me, admin team or operations team. And we really haven't experienced any of that across the board. I think, over these 12 months working on content, we've almost had every single employee author at least one piece of something that has gotten published this year. And that's a big incredible change for us too. So continuing to do that and have everybody involved and provide perspective and just build and grow our content marketing practice has been something that I've been extremely proud of. It's made my job trying to manage all of it as easy as it possibly could be. It's still a lot of work, but
Mhm.
You know, it takes a lot of the ideation and a lot of the hand wringing out of the process when everybody has bought into it.
Right, right. And when we see firms and start to work with them, they're coming from all different places. Some are like you, where a lot of content's been created, but maybe it wasn't the right kind of for business development purposes, right? Some have never done it at all, and so a big part of our work is just to customize what we do to meet our clients where they are and to maximize the existing strengths. And you had that. The fact that you were, as an organization, so comfortable with that was an incredible asset that many firms honestly don't have, at the start of our relationship. And so we were very happy about that. But right, the downside of having systems is calcification and being stuck in your ways. And so, yeah, your team's very, very flexible, which is just wonderful. So what creating content in a more comprehensive way, the fact that everyone's published is amazing. That's a win for sure. But why do any of that? And what's the difference from a biz dev perspective between last year and this year? So, last year we did just start working together, but you weren't yet employing any of our practices, right? But you were creating a lot of content.
We were creating a ton of content.
Yeah, a ton of content.
It wasn't geared toward any sort of marketing practice, though, and it wasn't honestly geared toward the decision makers that we wanted to bring to the website to convert in some way. It wasn't striking conversations, new leads. It was great for the development community, and over the years has obviously positioned us extremely well within the Drupal universe and the WordPress universe. But we wanted to kind of go a step above and really focus on business decision makers, whether it's from an IT perspective, keeping some of that tactical perspective within our content, or really reaching out to the Marcom audience for the first time, because the verticals that we typically work with, associations and higher education and media and publishing, it's the Marcom folks that ultimately hold the purse strings, quite honestly. Yeah. And that's a huge area of weakness for us. We just didn't know how to talk to those folks. If they happened to come in the door and reach out for some reason, and we were able to get to the point of having a conversation, we felt pretty confident that we could close. But it was just that perspective of search rankings and being perceived within the marketplace as a thought leader for that particular audience, drumming up new business and new leads. We were so far away from that, and it feels like it has been an absolutely seismic move for us over the last 12 months in that particular respect. And to go back to your point about everybody across the team creating content, your content team at Newfangled has felt very strongly about that from the beginning. I think that we've identified a number of buckets of subject matter content that really show every angle of our business and provide every perspective. And I think we're able to share that perspective across the entire team, whether it's an engineer or a strategist or a project manager or somebody on the operations team talking about our company culture and how it relates to working with us in some way. We've been able to provide just all of that perspective from every corner of the company. And I think it makes for a stronger content practice in general.
Right.
We were doing some of that before, but again, it wasn't structured in a way that was getting us results. We weren't really thinking about the end goal. We were just thinking about producing a piece of content and getting it out there, come what may. That was sort of the attitude before. Right. And you guys have really helped us think critically about every piece of content. We sit down in our monthly content meetings and go, okay, what's performing really, really well? Where are some areas that we need to focus? Who would be, even before we have a list of ideas, who do we need to reach out to on the team that can provide some perspective or help us spitball or come up with a list of ideas to really focus on. And I don't think we would have gotten to that place without you guys. You guys have held our hands every step of the way and provided the structure there that's been really necessary. And
yeah, that's our job. Right?
It's made the content creation process really easy. You know, the interviewing process has been fantastic. I think it takes the burden off of every one of our web chefs across the team. You know, there's this stigma of, oh gosh, I need to sit down and write a draft and then hand it off to somebody to critique. And the interview process with the content team at Newfangled takes all of those awful feelings and throws them out the window. Just have a conversation like you and I are having, Mark, about what this content really means to you, and you guys take it and mold it into something that is meaningful and purpose driven. And that's been exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your sentiment there. What we see on our side and working with you is that we're not molding it into something that's meaningful and purpose driven. You know, it's like a sculpture. We're just chiseling away all the stuff that isn't that.
Sure.
Right? It's you know, we're not creating anything that's not there. We can't. You know, we have zero expertise in your domain at all. Right? And that's how it is with all of our clients. We're not experts in any of those categories. It's our job just to work with you to make it easy. The way you described it there is so much stigma around sitting down, writing an article, and all of that. I mean, you're almost defeated before you even start. For a lot of us, there are some natural writers out there, and they're amazingly gifted people. I'm not one of them. You know, and a lot of people are. I think the majority of people aren't. And so we just love our what we've been able to put together with the interview process, where it's your thoughts, it's your words, it's your tone, but you don't have to write it. And we avoided that for years. You know, for many years we didn't believe in that. We said, okay, if the client can't do the writing, then there is no writing, and that's it. And it has to be from the client, because it's got to be those things. It's got to be their thoughts, their words, their tone, because otherwise it won't resonate. And most importantly, there won't be consistency between the marketing stage and the sales stage, right? Sure. People might get compelled on the marketing content and read it and like, oh, that's great. And then they get on the phone with somebody and like there's a huge disconnect, and that's not the person who wrote that article. And that's a sales loss. And so if that doesn't work, then there's no point to any of it. And so I'm really glad in terms of Newfangled developments, we figured out how to do that over the past couple of years. It's really quite recent history. And so, you know, hearing your thoughts on that, it's really quite helpful.
I mean, I think for our workflow as a team, you know, when we need to pull in a subject matter expert, you know, that's a billable person on our team working with multiple clients at once. Sometimes they're juggling multiple large projects at once. It makes the process so much more efficient for those folks, and actually, you know, makes them available. Otherwise they wouldn't be if they had to sit down and write a draft and then, you know, go through the editing process with somebody internally. They're able to sit down for 30 minutes, get everything off of their chest. You guys chisel it into something great, and then they can review it when a draft is available, and it takes a ton of time out of the process for us internally. And it really makes them available to be able to produce these types of content that have been successful for us this year.
And yeah, wouldn't have happened. Right. Sure. No, that makes sense. You wouldn't have been able to create that. It's all about time. One thing you mentioned a little earlier that struck me is that, hold on, I need to pause there. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. One thing you mentioned earlier that struck me was the idea that, you know, you've been creating content for so long, and, you know, the idea is, well, put it out there, you know, and like content marketing is good, right? We're doing it. You know? Let's just see what happens. And so often when we show up, the client is doing, you know, 70% of things exactly right, but that they're missing that last 30%. But that last 30% is different for every client, right? It's not the same thing for everybody. And for you all, and I remember when we had this conversation in Denver when we were all around the table together, you know, the idea of like, oh, it's the MarTech, it's those people, it's the Marcom, you know, those we need to talk to different audience. Like we're right here. We just need to go right there. We're so close to it. That one tweak is really the foundation of all this change.
You're right. I mean, just bringing you guys into that conversation and having our leadership team as a company sit down and just get everything out into the air. It's like, of course, it's so obvious now, but we have been able to make that move 1 or 2 inches over and focus on that core audience without you guys being there, because we just didn't have that outside perspective.
Right. It's just objectivity, right? The objectivity is so important in that case, in that regard. So let's talk about results. So all these great things, content's easier, you've got amazing contribution, you're speaking to a more accurate audience from a biz dev perspective. When I speak with prospects or anybody and people ask, well, how long does it take to see results? I used to say, and when we first spoke a year ago, what I said was, it's 9 to 15 months of being live, like it's close to a year of being live before you see it. Through some changes to our approach, we've been able to shorten that quite a bit. You've now been live a solid 8 months, right? Live the system. So the site updates, the whole new site, not even updates, a brand new site, content strategy's been running, emails been going out, ads have been running. And so all of that for, better part of 8 months, which is a good amount of time. What's the snapshot difference between right now and how you're feeling and what you're seeing in the biz dev landscape compared to, a year ago before you had implemented any of these changes?
I would say the absolute bottom line is that the vast majority of leads that come in through the site now are pre-qualified leads. They're good fits. They're things that we would want to bite on if all of the factors are right. They just are enticing work. And I certainly could not say that for the pipeline last year at this time. We had to do a ton of sifting, and that has largely been weeded out, especially the latter half of this year. As we had the new site up for the first quarter or so, by July, August, September was like one of our best months ever as a company in our almost 15-year history. Just seeing steady traffic to the site, great leads coming in, people converting all over the place in every manner on the site has been really huge for us. And as a result, our win probability has doubled between the first half of this year and the second half.
Wow.
Now, I mean, that may be some effect of the pandemic as well, but sure. Anytime you see a 2x jump within the same calendar year, that there's some changes being made, and we feel extremely good about the goals that we've set going into next year based on what we're seeing, especially over the last quarter in terms of performance. Okay. We were expecting pretty massive losses as a company this year as a result of the pandemic and our pipeline prior to working with Newfangled, and we're actually going to turn a pretty good profit closing the books in 2020, which is just astounding to us. It's the best news that we could possibly get after a year that's been so difficult for so many folks. And you guys are a huge testament to that. One thing that I'll say too, that in terms of results is we're hearing a lot of prospects come in the board and say, we had to reach out because we landed on your site. And your site kind of speaks for itself. The messaging is appropriate for us as a prospect. The site just looks good, it functions well. You're really speaking to us as a prospect, and we felt like we had to include you in consideration. We never got that kind of response before on our previous site. Frankly, our site was an embarrassment to everybody. across the company before we started working with you guys on the redesign process. That's been the single biggest change for us, just from a brand perspective in the marketplace. It's really, really elevated us to a place where we never were prior to working with Newfangled. So I think it's all of these elements, working with you guys, the redesign, the content strategy, more opportunities to convert across the site in different ways that has dramatically affected the pipeline for the better, and our win rate has doubled as a result. Yeah,
that's great.
It feels really good to say that. And we're at a point even this week where we're turning away work that we kind of hate to turn away, but we're at a place where we've got to prioritize what we want to take on going into next year, and that's the best place to be.
That's the best place to be. That's the best place to be. 100%. And that, from my perspective, that right there, that last thing you just said, is the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. When true ability to choose. To choose, to be forced to choose, even make uncomfortable decisions like, oh, it hurts to say no to this group, but we have to because we're too busy with other work that's just better. That, and the thing about that, and hitting that level as an organization, that can exponentially change firms, because then you're only taking on the best clients who you're going to be able to do the best work for, who you're going to learn the most from, and that work begets more better work, and it just, once that cycle's kicked off, it's a powerful thing.
You really nailed it right there. You guys really have the same mindset working with your clients that we do, where you value long-term strategic relationships. That was a huge foot in the door for Newfangled in terms of us wanting to work with you guys. We really have that same mindset and approach to our clients. And I'll say, by and large, a huge shift this year has been the new clients that we've taken on are long-term relationships where we can be more strategic as a company, more valuable to them in the long run. And from a biz dev perspective, for the sales team, that creates predictability. And that's really the name of the game in agency land, right?
That's the name of the game for me. That's it. We've been striving for a long time to bring our long-term relationship base up to a certain level of expenses in terms of percentage, because that's what we want. When one client's coming in the door as the next one's going out the door, you can't grow. And you don't have stability. And if you don't have stability, it's hard to deepen expertise inside the firm, because you can't retain top level talent and all the rest. It all cascades. So that's wonderful. And what's so great for me to hear is, again, it's the chiseling thing. Any marketing services firm can't do a thing to change the true nature of an organization, right? Mm-hmm. So the success you're having is just a direct reflection of the talent inside of your team. And that's it. If the talent weren't there, if the intelligence wasn't there, nobody could have helped, right? And all we did was just allow the actual brilliance of Four Kitchens to be perceived by the masses, period. I oftentimes refer to Newfangled as just a mirror. All we can do is hold a mirror.
I like that.
Only thing we can do. It's the truth. We can't create something that's not there. And that's why for us, when we're choosing our clients for the same reasons you want to choose, your best clients, it's that, well, who can we really help? Who's got the goods? Who's got the expertise? That's the second level, right? The first thing that's required is passion, desire, like a real deep desire. And the second is the expertise. Those are the two things that are required for us to be able to help. And we're always vetting that. And when we see a firm has got both those things, we get kind of ravenous, we've got to work with them. And that's how.
Yeah, I know that feeling when you've got that, that like-mindedness across the aisle. You're like, oh man, we call that nourishing work here. And I fully believe in it. You know, if you're excited to jump on what's on your plate every day, it makes all the difference in the world.
All the difference in the world for every single individual in the company, and the clients feel it. And yeah, I love that phrase. I've not heard that, nourishing work. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and we're big believers in a concept called unique ability, and that's something that I don't know if you guys talk about internally or not. It's a bit of an offshoot of the EOS system, but basically, it's people operating in their zone, whatever their zone is, and when all these other things we're talking about are in play, you can get people in that zone, and that's another exponential growth agent inside the organization. When people are doing nourishing work and they can operate in the unique ability and the client appreciates it. I mean, it's just everything we spoke about at our very first meeting, the right fit clients who appreciate, derive maximum benefit from, and refer your unique ability as a company. You know, that definition from Strategic Coach is like, that's what you guys have. And that's what you know. And it's been such a pleasure working with you and the team. I really appreciate your efforts specifically. You've done so much to make this happen, and as you full well know, it's a lot of work, but you've done it impeccably well, and I just really appreciate you all decided to make the investment in us a year ago.
Likewise. I mean, you guys have just been absolutely fantastic, top to bottom. Everybody that we've met at Newfangled this year has been genuinely interested in learning who we are as a business and making us better, both professionally and as an entire organization, down to the individual. And I really, really appreciate that. Excited about next year. We're really just getting started here. So we're going to get into some new territory next year with you guys. And we're really, really looking forward to that. We feel like we've got our feet under us now, and we're ready to take a bigger leap going into 2021.
Yeah, that's a key element of this, is that once you've got your pacing, which you do, then it's like, all right, what can we do with this? You know, and it's about constant measurement and refinement. And now that you've gotten the proof, like, okay, this actually works, this is how we do it, then it really gets fun, right? Because then you can start experimenting, exploring, and moving and growing, and that's just thrilling. So yeah, can't wait to continue that growth with you next year. We're looking forward to that. And I appreciate you making time for this conversation today, Sai.
You got it. Thanks so much, Mark.
Okay. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care. Bye. Bye.